Today we're going to do three things. We're going to talk about the reasons why I've decided to ship my BMW R18B to France when, I mean, let's be honest, the sensible thing to do would be to sell it here in Canada and buy the same bike over in France, but hey. Number two, I'm going to take that bike back to stock. So I'm going to take all the aftermarket bits on it and put all the original parts, exhaust, seat, engine bars, etc. Put them all back on it, make it stock. And number three, I am going to compare the original exhaust note, sound, loudness, etc. with the aftermarket exhaust that that I'd put on side by side, same microphone, same setup. So if anybody's interested in putting an aftermarket exhaust on one of these bikes, you can hear very clearly the difference in engine note, etc. I'm going to tell you about the time I picked up a beautiful blonde in a dodgy Turkish hotel foyer. So what we have here is a BMW 2022 R18 B for bagger. I bought this new, and it was my retirement present to myself. And Mrs. M would question whether or not I'm actually whether I'm retired. She the story is that what she did was she said to me one day, because I was making kitchens for the whole world on the coast. Trades are in short supply, so I was making kitchens for everybody. I wasn't getting any work done in the house, and Mrs. M said to me, she said, "I'd really rather you didn't do any work for anybody else until you finish my house." Now I don't know why, but I heard retirement in that. So confusion reigned. But you know, I wasn't taking any chances, so I immediately sold all my woodworking machinery. I emptied the workshop. This and next door was my workshop, and so I sold all my machines. Well, I mean, you know, she might have changed her mind. So I bought this. Now, the question that I, and this is a sanity check more than anything, I think, for me, is why shipping it to France? Why would I ship it to France? Why not just sell it in Canada, get to France, and buy the same bike in France, because they exist. They are there in France. Well, I mean, it's a German machine. It's Berlin built. So of course I could buy one, and there are lots. You look at Le Bon Coin, and there are quite a few examples of this particular bike. Now this has got really low mileage, really low kilometers. It's done 2,400 kilometers. That's all. I mean, we live in a part of the world that's only got one road, for God's sake. So which is a pain really. So yes, I could buy this in France, but listen, now you see, here's the thing. This in Canada. You could buy this now. This is as I said, this is a 2022. So I could buy this now in Canada for between $18 and $20,000, which equates to about 12,000 euros. To buy this bike in France, it would cost me between 18 and 20,000 euros. That's between 6,000 and 8,000 euros more expensive in France than in Canada. Go figure. And frankly, I mean, I don't want to sell it. I like this bike. I've grown attached to it. I'd just rather keep it. And I know there's going to be people say, well, what about the duty? What about duty and what about import taxes and all the rest of it? And this is where it's such a grey area. There's so much information out there, which is, I don't know if it's misleading or what, but you look on the French government website, and apparently, if you move into France, if you're going to live, if you emigrate into France, and providing you don't sell the vehicle, providing you registered it in France when you get there, and providing you don't sell it within 12 months of landing, you don't have to pay any duty, and you don't have to pay any import tax. I may have got that completely wrong, and I would welcome any comments on that matter. But in any case, I've got to take it back to stock, because the one thing I do know is that they wouldn't want to see aftermarket exhausts on it. They wouldn't want to see aftermarket parts on it. It's got to be all back to stock. I've been riding motorcycles for about 50 years now. And I think it's fairly safe to say that this is probably the best bike I've ever owned. I say probably because it might be a toss-up. I've ridden quite a lot of BMWs, and prior to this one, I used to ride the 1150 GS. Everybody knows what the BMW was, like the big trail bike. You remember Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor did their series all around wherever it was. They went from all around the world on these two bikes, and I used to have one of them. And I remember I've probably had about 5 over, not all together, but I've had 5 different ones. It's like anything else, circumstances change. I was self-employed for such a long time, and you know, when orders come in, it's great, and when you're getting paid, it's fantastic. And then if you go through slim pickings period, you got to sell stuff just to keep the wolves from the door. And I used to sell motorbikes, and then as soon as I got orders in, I used to buy them back again. So I used to always, you know. But those the 1150 GS is a fantastic bike, and I remember. I'm going to go off on one now, I think. I've got to get this done today. Okay. And I'm not going to show you all the details of doing it. I'll probably put it on a time lapse, and you get the general idea, because it, like I say, it'll bore you to tears. But talking about it reminds me, I think this was probably about 15, 16 years ago now. I rode a motorcycle from I went on a tour. I went on a big trip. And I rode a motorcycle from the north of England to the Iran border, okay? There's no way I'd do that now, because it's dangerous aside from anything else. But so from the north of England all the way down to Dover, and then across on a ferry into France, and then all the way across France, all the way across Europe to Eastern Europe, into Turkey, and then across the Bosphorus, across northern Turkey to the Iran border, headed south, all the way across the southern coast of Turkey, then up on a ferry to Greece, then to Italy, and then back up through Europe, blah, 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 blah. It was about 8,500 miles I covered. It took me about a month to do it. It was life-changing, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But I remember at the time that I went as part of a group of riders, and there was 13 of us that set out on this trip, and we lost people along the way. There was a couple of accidents, and bikes were totaled. And people just gave up. They just didn't want to do it anymore. And there was a fella that I really got to know quite well, called Dan, and we kind of stuck together. You know, you gravitate to people, don't you? And he was on a sports bike. He was on this angry bike. His was a angry sports bike, and I had an 1150 GS. He called it the armchair. And Mrs. M was kind of doing jobs all the time. She was always going to Europe, and she was at the same time we were getting into Turkey. The first day in Turkey, she happened to be on a business trip in Turkey as well. And I didn't tell any of the other guys this. I didn't tell them. I didn't let them know. So Mrs. M was. I'd given her the details of this hotel that we were intending to stay at that night, the first night in Turkey. It was a swine to find. We had to pay a taxi driver. I'm sure he thought we were bonkers, but we had to pay a taxi. We gave him the address, and we followed the taxi driver all on bikes. He drove to the hotel, and we followed him. We paid him up front. He could have done a runner, but he didn't. Anyway, so it was like he had outriders. He was driving through Turkey, followed by, I think at that time there was about 7 or 8 bikes. I think he felt a bit important, actually. Anyways, it was a long day. I'd managed to text Mrs. M the address. She was staying at another hotel, which was really, really fancy. And we arrived at this dodgy hotel, this terrible place, all dishevelled and dusty and tired. And we were all gathered round the bar having a beer and just chatting away, chewing the fat before we were going to head up to our dodgy rooms, bug bedridden rooms. Mrs. M walked into the hotel, and to a man, every single and I hadn't told anybody that she was coming. They didn't even know that I was intending to meet my wife. They all turned to look, and Mrs. M is a looker. All right, I'm very lucky. I don't know how I managed to. I don't know how sense of humour. Must be my personality. Maybe the fact that I can lick my own eyebrows. I don't know. Anyway, I can put up a shelf. So she walked into this hotel looking ice cold. She was beautiful and all blonde and sexy. And all these other guys who knew nothing what was going on turned around to look at her. And I put my beer down, picked up my bag, walked up to her, and just did one of those Hollywood swoops where I grabbed her and spun her backwards and planted a smacker. Dan told me afterwards, all the other guys were going, what just happened then? How did he do? What? How did what? I can imagine, it was funny. I stayed in an extra 2 days. They moved on the next day, all the rest of the guys, and I stayed an extra day in Turkey. And then I had to catch them up. I did 600 miles the next day to catch them all up again, which was a long day. But on this bike, that's the measure of those bikes. You can do 600 miles on that bike in one day. Oh, I had a sore back, but that was some kind of bike. Anyway, we digress. So that is the right side of the bike done. I quite enjoy this stuff. I'm not a mechanic. I'm a woodworker, and generally speaking, the two areas of expertise don't often interact in my experience. And that's fine. People have their own skills, and mine isn't really tinkering with engines. I did in the past because I had to, but I never really enjoyed it. But I've actually enjoyed this. There's things I won't go near for obvious reasons, because new engines and new vehicles these days need specialist instrumentation. They need specialist machines to be able to, to get them run correctly. So I avoid all that stuff. I let the dealers sort all that. But little bits, upgrading this, that, and the other, I'll deal with that, and I like it, and I don't rush. And but we've got to take it back to how it was, and that was really quite simple. I mean, as I said before, I've been riding bikes for since I was 15, and I'm 63. Oh, I've ridden low. I have come off so many times. I've been injured so many times. I've broken loads of bones. I've broken legs and arms and a back. I broke my back one time, which really did freak Mrs. M out when she came to the hospital to find me. And they were going to cut my leather trousers off and my fantastic butt. I said, no, don't cut them off. So she was a little bit concerned, but these things happen. And biking is not safe. It is inherently not safe. However, as a counter to that, I might mention that if you, I'm old now, and there's no longer a sense of urgency to get there before everybody else. And I adopt the attitude that every single other vehicle around me is out to kill me. That car in front is going to pull out. That car behind is going to run into the back of me. Because let's face it, if I believe that and act accordingly, one day I'm going to be right. So I adopt a more defensive, and I don't hurtle it. I take it down. I take it easy, nice and steady. I enjoy the ride without all the adrenaline rush that has to go with it. So there you go. As I said before, I've been riding for years. I remember my brother. I've mentioned my brother. My brother's great. Don't listen. I hope you don't think I've been giving my brother a hard time, but for 9 years he was 9 years between us, and so he's had to suffer my needling for all those years. I'm surprised he turned out as like he did. I'm surprised he's not in a mental institution by now. I used to pinch him when he was in the cot. How mean was I? When he was and all of a sudden he'd scream, and my mother had come rushing in, and what's the matter? What's the matter? No idea, mother. I don't know. It's Paul. He's just screaming for no reason. I'm terrible, aren't I? But I remember one time when I had a VMAX once, a horrible, terrible bike, wouldn't corner would never go around a corner, but crikey, it was fast in a straight line. And the one I had was kind of it was on steroids. They'd given it some kind of tune. So it didn't have an accelerator, it didn't have a throttle, it had an on-off switch. It was just so leery. Didn't keep it long, it was so uncomfortable. Mrs. M didn't like it on the back. Me neither, for that matter. You couldn't ride it for more than an hour, and you would hurt. So but I was having troubles with this one Sunday afternoon. Paul came up to the house to say hello and a cup of tea, and he looked at the bike he'd never seen before, and he said, "Oh, that looks interesting." And I said, "Yeah, it's great. Do you want to come for a spin?" And he went, "Yeah, why not?" So I had a spare helmet, and bear in mind it wasn't running well, and it had some kind of either fuel or electrical fault or something, and it was intermittent. It would splutter, and then it would suddenly pick up. And then it'd splutter again, and then it'd pick up, and then it'd splutter. So anyway, I said, "Come on, let's go for a ride on this." And so he jumped on the back. I said to him, hold on to me. It had a little grab rail, but I said, the grab rail is no good. Hold me. I don't know if it was some kind of weird kind of man, touching thing going on, but he didn't like holding on. Mrs. M always held on to me. He didn't like a bit too in his face, I suppose. Didn't like touching. So anyway, I thought, well, listen, I told him, just listen, hold on. And we set off up this road, and it was still popping and farting a little bit. So I said, I'm going to go back. And he went, okay, yeah. So I turned it round in the road. And I said, look, I'm just going to give it one last, open it up and see what happens. And he went, yeah. I said, hold on. He went, yeah, I'm holding on. You sure? Yeah. Well, I set off down this road on this VMAX, and it kind of it didn't want to go to start with, and then boom, it was like the whole thing just rocketed down the road. He wasn't ready for it on the back, and his legs, his boots came up behind. His boot came up and it kicked my helmet as he went over the top. He went over the top. Now, that's bad enough in itself, but he didn't let go. He hung on to the back of he had one hand holding the grab rail at the back of me and didn't let go. I dragged him. I must have dragged him about 300 yards down the road until we finally stopped. It's a surprise he didn't get run over by the truck that was behind. It was, I mean at the time, he was just, I think he was in shock because he laughed uncontrollably. And we got him back. And he thought it was funny, but I don't think it wasn't funny. I laughed, of course. I mean, he's my brother. What can you do? I pissed myself laughing. And he just bought these new boots. You could see his toes through the boot. He'd worn these boots away. And his jeans were all ripped to shreds. He didn't have gloves on. I offered, no, I don't want gloves. Okay. And so all his knuckles were all grazed on the one hand that he was trying to stop himself. It was, that's my brother. Knew better. I did try and warn him. But it always seems to me that, I don't know. I mean, like I say, I'm surprised he's not in a mental institution by now, the stuff he's had to go through. There's 101 tales I could tell about my brother. But anyway, that's about as much as I've got. I'm going to do the other side of this bike. I'll get this the other side done, and I'm not going to bore you with those details. But at the end of the video, what I will do, I'll post up a before and after with the microphone in the same place, so you can hear the difference between an aftermarket Freedom exhaust on one of these and the stock exhaust, because there is a difference. For anybody that's, that finds this video on the R18B, you might be interested. One last thing, my little channel is, I can't thank people enough for people that have come to join. I'm having such a blast. I'm having so much fun with this. It may not be to everybody's taste, and that's fine, but I'm having a lot of fun, and we're growing. We are growing our little channel, and for all the new subscribers, I think we're up to about 240 subscribers now. We've only been at it a couple of months. I can't thank you enough, really. This is great. All I would say, if for people who aren't subscribed currently, just drop us if you wouldn't mind. If that'd be great, because it just helps us grow a little bit more, and the algorithms, etc., and YouTube push it a bit more and all the rest of it, and that's great. So we're growing, and that's great. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this little episode. I hope you have too, and we will see you after I've put it back together. Turn it on so you can hear the difference, and then I will see you next time. So I did say I was going to post up the comparison between the aftermarket exhaust and the standard exhaust, and the aftermarket exhaust in this instance is the Freedom exhaust, and so the same microphone positioned in the same place. This is what the standard exhaust sounds like. And this is what the aftermarket Freedom exhaust sounds like. So, before, after. Okay?